Hello, hi. This is Carla Metzdorf. I am admin to the group Overcoming Anxiety for Stressed Out Moms Have Had Enough, and I'm also a certified health and life coach who works with moms to overcome anxiety. As you come on, ladies, say hello. Let me know who's on with me today. I'm just gonna go over to the group because I see things better in the group than on my phone. I don't always see things on, so where am I? Oh, there I am. No, I'm not. I don't see it in the group yet. Hi, ladies. As you come on, say hi. Hey, how's everybody doing? Hello. Hey, Carol, thank you for saying hi. I actually saw that on the phone. Sometimes I see it on the phone, and other times I do not. I don't see the live in the group yet. You know what? Let me update so that I don't miss anything. As you come on and say hi. Hi, Christy. I see a lot of people coming on, but not everybody's saying hi. Hey, Casey. Casey, Christy, Carol, that's all I say. I see who's saying hi. But I think there's more people on than just 3. So say hi, everybody. So I'm coming on today because I want to talk to you about what to do when you start feeling lonely and isolated due to anxiety. Because as we know, hey Danielle, as we know, hey Abby, anxiety can make you feel very alone in the world. I know when I had anxiety, I was always surrounded by people because I had to be babysat. I was afraid to be alone. I had to be babysat. So the thing was, even though I always had people around me, I felt very alone. So how could that be? How could I be alone when I'm in a room full of people? Okay, so let's talk about this. And the best way to start that is I really want to define this, because when we think about being alone, we think being alone is just not being to be alone, we think is being by yourself. So when I'm by myself, I'm alone. But being alone is more than just being in a room by yourself, because as I said, I felt alone even though I was surrounded by people. So what's missing, right? What's missing, ladies, is the connection. Hey ladies, thank you for joining me. Thank you for coming on today and joining me. We're talking about feeling lonely and isolated due to the anxiety, and what are we going to do about it? So I just gave a definition. Being alone is more than just not, being by yourself. It's not having connection with those who you are with. Whether it's emotionally, physically, socially. So you could be in a room. It doesn't matter with how many people. It doesn't matter. If you don't feel connected to any of those people, you just feel like you're all by yourself. Can you all relate to that, ladies? Has anybody been in that situation, what I just said? Can you give me a 1 or just say yes if you just understood what I said, because you've been in that situation before? Can you give me a 1 or say yes, just to let me know that you understand what I'm talking about and you've been in that place before? Absolutely. Okay, 1. Yeah, thank you for that, ladies. Absolutely. So alone is not being by yourself. It's when you feel lonely, okay? when it's more of the way you're responding, but it's subjective, okay? Because what makes you feel alone doesn't mean that's going to make me feel alone, So it's a very subjective emotional response, okay? It could be voluntary or involuntary. And what it does is it causes you to isolate. You feel isolated and rejected from the people who are around you, despite wanting to connect with them. It doesn't mean that you don't want to connect. Maybe you're trying to connect, but you just don't feel it. So what that ultimately does is it allows you to start thinking, I'm not relating to these people. And you start moving away, which is where we get to the isolation, okay? So being alone is like a feeling. That loneliness is a feeling that you feel, okay? Because you don't have that connection. So isolation, okay, when you start to isolate, the Oxford Dictionary, okay, says to cause to be alone. So what you start doing is you start moving away, apart from these people that you feel isolated. You feel no connection with, okay? So you start, let's say, not accepting those invitations. Your friends are calling you, hey, let's go out. And you're like, I can't today. Like, you'll make up excuses, or maybe you'll be honest with them. The anxiety isn't really good. I didn't sleep last night. I mean, you'll say whatever to get out of it, because it's more comfortable, even though you're not feeling comfortable, to stay home. How many of you are at that point where you're isolating yourself? Can you give me a 2 or say me if you're on with me right now and you're isolating yourself? Who's isolating? Isn't any of you doing that? Where it's just too uncomfortable? Yeah, Abby and Christy. Yeah, Angela and Corey. Brandy. I mean, it's not a fun place to be. It really isn't. To start separating yourself from others. You feel like you lack that connection and support from others, and you just start, I'm going to be by myself. Like, you are consciously making that effort. Sometimes we unconsciously do it. We really want that connection, but our anxiety, I mean, it's just so overwhelming the way we feel. We're so focused on it that I really want to be there. I mean, I remember being on the phone with a woman for 2 hours because the next day was her child's graduation, and she just couldn't bring herself to go, because what if she felt the anxiety? So, I mean, she wasn't a client, but I couldn't let her not go to her child's graduation. Could you imagine looking back at that and knowing I never went to my child's graduation because of my anxiety? I knew someday she would regret that. Unfortunately, she never called me to tell me if she actually won or not. But these are the things that we face. So, did anyone ever do something like that? Like miss something very important in your life because of the anxiety? Has anybody done that? Just say me. so that I know that like you understand how anxiety can limit you and keep you from living life. Ah, January, you almost. And yes, I have brother's wedding. You do have his wedding coming, or you missed his wedding? I'm glad I helped with that, January. I missed my daughter's cheer competition. Yeah. No, but I'm at that point. Okay, Corey. Well, hopefully today you'll listen to this live. You can listen to it over and over, and hopefully it will help you so that, oh, you did miss his wedding. Okay. I know, and you read this in my post that I made earlier this week. My husband's uncle passed away. And I mean, I really should have been there for my husband. And I should have went to the wake, to the funeral, but I didn't. Why? Because I was so anxious, so in not a good place, that I couldn't. I mean, my husband was like, yeah, I understand, and the family came back. Oh, we understand why Carla's not here. We understand. But in the back of their heads, I'm thinking they're going, oh, yeah, she's just crazy. She's just, of course she couldn't come, and that they were all judging me, right? So it was, I mean, something had to change, okay? Because I felt really alone in the way I was living my life, isolating myself, telling friends I couldn't get together, not doing things, not going places. I mean, I did the best I could because I had young kids. I was the main caregiver. I had to drive them from place to place, whether I liked it or not. But whenever I could, I mean, I would not go out and do, if I had to, I would suck it up, but I'm sure it was obvious what I was feeling if people looked at me. And it was very embarrassing. And it made me want to stay home even more because that's what I did. I dropped my kids off at school and I basically stayed home. And I paced and cried for hours until I went to go pick them up. It was horrible. It was horrible. Okay. So I'll tell you how I changed all of that. So what happens to our brain? I talked about this a little bit last week, talking about stress and whatever, and it kind of is the same thing. So, because the brain, okay, will process this isolation as a threat. Because as we go into social situations and we keep telling the brain, yeah, I don't like this. I feel very threatened. I'm so embarrassed being here. I feel ashamed. I want to go home. What if they're all staring at me? What if they're looking at me and they know what I feel like inside? They see that I can't breathe. They know my heart's pounding out of my chest right now. That's what goes through our heads, that people are totally judging us, that we have reason to be embarrassed because they know exactly how we feel, what we're going through. We're afraid of that judgment. So what we do is we avoid, right? We stay inside. I'm not going to go because they're going to look at me. They're going to see that, hi, Missy, it's okay that you're late. You're here. That's what matters. They see me being this way. They're going to think different of me. They're going to think I'm crazy, so you start thinking what you think of yourself and your situation is what they start thinking of you and your situation. That they can see everything that you're feeling. So you think, oh, this is so embarrassing. And you see this as threatening, and you tell the brain as much. The brain is reading this, like, okay, she's processing this as a threat. Oh no. So what does it do? Sends out those lovely chemicals, right? Those chemicals we know so well. Those stress chemicals into our body. Sends out that SOS that we're in danger. Something's wrong. So we stay in that hypervigilant state, okay? And we start isolating ourselves, okay? The brain starts seeing being alone as maybe comforting, as a way of escape, keeping you safe. Now, when I stay home, when I don't drive, when I stay home, when I don't go out amongst others, I'm safe. Is that making sense, ladies? Can you give me a 3 or say yes if all of that just made sense? So the amygdala, okay, is the emotional part of the brain. It's the alarm system that goes, oh boy, she's in danger. Sends out all those lovely chemicals, right? And that part over here, the prefrontal cortex, where all the logical thought takes place, okay, that kind of gets cut off, all right? That is the part where you find it harder to think and to regulate your emotion, right? Because that's shut off and you're thinking with the other part of the brain that's kind of like over here in the upper top towards the back, the amygdala, right? But the more you isolate, okay, the more the brain's going to be like, yep, this is not a good thing. We're going to make this something that she's always going to do, okay? Because we know being out in the open with other people, we don't like that. So we're going to like help her stay home. We're going to help her make those decisions to stay home, okay? But the more isolated you feel, okay, the more the brain is going to see those interactions as threatening. The more you're going to stay home, the more you're going to feel that anxiety and depression, and it becomes a cycle. And then the more you're going to isolate. So, we make these interpretations, right? We don't always get it right. This is why loneliness is subjective. Okay? I want to give an example, okay? Because I know you could all relate to this. Let's say you go to a party. You're at a barbecue, okay? You're amongst family and friends. These are people you know, people you love, people who love you. But let's say you're among them, but I don't know, they're like not really interacting with you the way they normally do. The aunt that usually squeezes you tight and gives you these kisses, she kind of like didn't do that. She just went mwah and walked away. Or, they're not acting with you the way that they normally do. So now like you're making all these assumptions in your head. Something must be wrong. He or she must be mad at me. He or she must know what I'm going through and they're judging me. Does this make sense, ladies? Have you ever done this? Can you give me a 4 or say absolutely? If you have ever done something like this, make these assumptions because people were not treating you exactly the way you thought you should be treated. So you took it, right? You took it that, they have to be judging me. I know I'm being judged right now. Absolutely. For sure, I am being judged. Right? Okay, see? Yeah, thank you for that. For sure, right? We think that that everybody is looking at us. Everybody is judging. Everybody sees exactly how we feel, right? for sure. But that's not what's going on. That's not what's going on at all. You know, I mean, sometimes, see, the thing is, going out in these things, you know, in these situations, can be frustrating for us. I know one time I went to a barbecue, and I was feeling pretty anxious that I didn't leave because my family was there, but what I did was I went into one of the kids' bedrooms because I figured no one's going to follow me. And I started like pacing all over the place. Like I'm pacing and I'm trying to like, okay, Carla, you're fine, you're fine. Just go back out there, just smile, talk to people. Like I'm like trying to talk to myself, right? And then, you know, and I had some friends coming in, Carla, what's wrong? Like why are you here by yourself? Like what's going on? And I'm like, oh, I'm just feeling really anxious. And oh, Carla, you know, just breathe. Or Carla, you know, are you on medication? Are you taking your medication? Maybe you should go to the doctor and get more medication. And Carla, why don't you try this? And Carla, this and and I just felt very misunderstood. Okay, like they meant well. They were trying to give me advice, but the advice was not really helping. Okay, I felt extremely misunderstood. Embarrassed. I just, you know, I wanted to avoid having to answer their questions, if that makes sense. Like, that's another reason why people will isolate, because it's like every time I go out and I'm with my family and my friends, you know, maybe they're doing the opposite. They're not avoiding you, but they keep coming at you. You know, oh, are you still that way? Are you still fighting anxiety? You know, and they're doing to you what my friends did to me. They're giving you all this advice. They're telling you, you know, are you on medication? Go on medication. And if you're already on medication, maybe you should see that doctor. Maybe the doctor should give you more medication. Who are you working with? You should work with somebody, you know, and they're going to give you all kinds of advice. And then you feel like they don't understand. You know, this is what I do when I have anxiety and I'm fine. And, you know, why aren't you fine? So, you know, we want to avoid being misunderstood. We want to avoid, you know, having people come at us like that, make us feel so uncomfortable that we should be further along than where we are. So another reason why we isolate, for sure. So, so the brain does keep you in this state because you're programming it. It's all about the programming. You're doing it over and over again, and it's a vicious cycle. Vicious cycle. That's exactly what it is. So, what are we going to do? How are we going to fix this? Because nobody wants to stay like this, right? I mean, yeah, I mean, you know, of course, you have to understand what anxiety is, of course. But we have to, part of overcoming the isolation, okay? It's more than just overcoming anxiety. You got to get back out there, okay? So, what are we going to do? The first thing we want to do, okay, is you have to have awareness. Yeah, were you surprised that I even said that? Awareness, right? You want to have awareness. Because you can't fix what you don't know. And if you're not sure why you're isolating, and why you feel so lonely, you know, you're not lonely because people are shunning you. You're lonely more because of the interpretations you're making. Okay? If you keep telling a friend, no, thank you, I'm not coming, and you keep not accepting those invitations, yeah, your friend might be like, oh, I'm not going to send her an invitation anymore. I'm not going to bother calling her because every time I do, she just turns me down. You know, she just doesn't come. So it does affect relationships, you know? So, so what we need to do, okay, is build connection with existing relationships and to also build new connections. So in other words, if you have your husband, your family, your friends starting like you feel like you're isolating from them or they're starting to move away from you. Let's say that's your perception. They're moving away from you, okay? But you desire connection. So what can I do? What can I do to keep up that connection? Because I don't want to lose my relationship with my husband, with my family, with my friends, but they're not understanding me and they're not calling me anymore. You know, they're probably tired of hearing me. You know, they probably are sick and tired of dealing with my BS, you know, because that's the way we talk about ourselves. It's BS. You know, they probably see me as you know, as a burden. Because that's how I felt. I felt like I was a burden. They see me as a burden. So, you know, how can I fix this? Number one, okay, awareness, like I said, is key to understand what you're doing. That to take responsibility that, okay, it's not them just ignoring me and moving away from me. I'm giving them cues. Like, you know, they're not understanding what I'm going through because they've never been where I've been before, probably, you know. So they're maybe looking to me for guidance. And I understand when they approach me, they're just trying to help. But it's not helping, you know. So communication. Okay? Communication to our loved ones would really, you know, help them to understand what you need. Sitting down with your husband, your best friend, and this may be hard for you. I mean, because you have to make yourself vulnerable. But being vulnerable with your husband, your best friend, I mean, these are people who love you and who you love. So hopefully you can do that with your husband, your best friend, you know, your partner in crime. You know, be a little bit vulnerable. Tell them what it is that you're experiencing and that your isolation, you know, the reason why you never show up for things, the reason why you feel you can't is because of what you're experiencing and the fears that you have. You know, they may not still quite understand because, ladies, what we know is until you really experience this, it's so hard to understand. And we know that, okay? You know, I mean, I've told my husband how I felt, and he was like, okay, I don't say I understand that, but okay, you know, and he supported me, but no, he still to this day does not understand anxiety because he's never been like that, you know, like he's never had that strong of anxiety that's it affected his life where he was barely living life. He's never been down that route. And it doesn't matter how many times I explain anxiety to him. He's just like, I don't know. I don't understand that. So, but he's compassionate about it, you know, and hopefully your loved ones will be compassionate about it too. Okay, we may not be able to get them to understand, but what we could do is at least explain to them our behavior, like why is it that I'm isolating, that I'm not going out, and I just want to, so many more people coming on, and I'm not. Ladies, as you come on, because I'm seeing people coming off, they're jumping on, say hi, and if you're coming in late, just watch it from the beginning, okay? So so the first thing, okay, to overcome this, all right, what to do to not isolate so much anymore is to go out of your way, because only you can do this, ladies. Only you can do this. Don't expect your friends and family to like try to fix it. They're not going to fix it. Only you can fix it, okay? So they're waiting for you to make that first move. So try to take those pre-existing connections and make them stronger. And it might take some time, you know? It might, because you need to make yourself a little vulnerable, you know? Step by step, little by little. Or make new connections, okay? So maybe the friends that you have, you don't want to get rid of them. But, you know, as they say, find your tribe, okay? So being in this group, ladies, you're finding your tribe. Now, you don't all know one another. There are thousands of people in this group. You definitely don't know one another, but you certainly found your tribe because these women in this group understand you maybe more than your husband or your children or your mother, or your father, your best friend, your aunts, all those other people who are close to you. These women in this group probably understand you better than they do. So connections, making connections. So that's joining groups, okay? Definitely joining those groups, whether it's a book club or a prayer club. You don't want everything to be online, ladies. I mean, yeah, I understand some of you are in like 20 Facebook groups, okay? But ladies, it's very important that you get outside and make personal, face-to-face connections. Connections can't be all about social media, okay? It's so important to have that physical connection as well, and forming a relationship in a way that it becomes like more emotional, you know? So when I was in coaching school, okay, I mean, I made a lot of connections, but they were all online because I was meeting people all across the country, right? So I was paired up with this woman because, we have to I have to practice being a coach. Like I have to, be the coach and she's the client and vice versa, we practice on one another. So I was paired up with this woman, Mary, and Mary and I, for 2 years, were partners in crime. We didn't want to change. We really connected. But the connection was just through, the video. And I thought, no. I mean, once we both graduated, we became coaches and started having our own company. I said, we have to start visiting one another. We need more connection. We never actually met one another. And we did. And she came to New York and she was here for like 5 days and I took her everywhere and took her all through New York and we spent so much time together and we connected on a level, even though this woman knew so much about me, she didn't know me, and meeting in person put us on a different level. Does that make sense, ladies? So you need to get out. Go find that book club. Go join a prayer group. Volunteer somewhere, okay? Volunteer in a homeless shelter or maybe in a animal shelter or at a church or even in your child's school, right? Thank you, Abby. So go volunteer in your children's school. Do they need people to run events? Do you belong to the PTA? Get involved in the PTA or, go to the gym. Go do something. Get out the door. Okay? I'm not saying to jump into this, ladies. I'm not saying that. We're going to do everything slow. Okay? Because if you're somebody who has been disconnected from the world for a while, like isolating yourselves, jumping into it with 2 feet really quickly can make things worse. So you want to always do things one step at a time, slowly. Maybe the first step is just, what can I join? What can I do? And, and see what's out there. The next step is, okay, I'm going to sign up. I'm going to attend the first meeting and maybe just sit in the back. Okay. I haven't isolated in years, but 2 years ago, I joined a prayer group. These ladies have become my best friends. In 2 years, I went from not knowing who these people were to now they're like family to me. And I know I'll never be alone, ever, because I just have to text one of these ladies, call up one of these ladies, and they'll be at my door. I have a forever family. And I'm so blessed to have found them. But this is what joining a group, finding different connections can do for you. But you do it slowly, one step at a time, all right? So if you have existing connections, strengthen them. If you lost connection and you want new connections, find that tribe, okay? Find those people who are going to understand you. If you have to join, like you're in an anxiety group, but maybe find somebody in the group that lives near you that maybe you can get together with. Find that person, okay? Make connections. The other thing is self-care. And I know, I talk about self-care a lot. I know I talk about self-care a lot. You're probably tired of hearing me talk about self-care. But ladies, think about this, right? When you put yourself by yourself in your home, okay? Now you're isolated in your home. You're alone. You and yourself. Alone with your thoughts, with your feelings. And nothing much else going on, right? So, are you sleeping well? Are you eating right? Are you exercising while you're isolating yourself? What are you doing to ensure your self-care as you're isolating yourself? Are you practicing any self-care? That exercise, sleep, and the way you're eating. And are you nurturing your relationships? Relationships are very important. Because even if you're having a hard time meeting up, okay, in person, start small with maybe calling, texting, video chatting. Maybe start that way, okay? And then you can step outside and maybe sit in the back of a meeting, and work your way to start talking to people and making those connections. When you're alone, you tend to overthink and to focus more on your problems, on your worries, not so much on that solution. That we know that the brain can rewire itself. That's neuroplasticity. And I've talked about that a lot. So doing these things of making more connection, okay, and getting yourself out there is going to help with that. Practicing self-care is going to help with that. So the other things that you can do, and I'm trying to even think of the other things. What did I say? Connections. Let's talk about praying and growing your relationship with God. Because if you're feeling very alone, okay, the one thing you could tell yourself is that there's always one presence that's there, always, 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 always with you. It is never going to leave you, and that's the presence of God. Now, we don't always feel like we're in the presence of God. We don't always feel him, but the thing is, the Bible tells us he's always there. He does not leave you. He never leaves you or stops working on you. So instead of focusing on your problems, instead of worry, do what it tells you to do in Philippians 4. We pray. We are to pray and bring all those prayers. Tell God everything that's on our minds and our hearts. Take it to God. To trust in him, right? So we are to pray about it. So make connections or strengthen the connections you already have. Practice self-care. But I want to stress, part of self-care is exercise, but I want to say, like, be active. Like, if you're going to isolate, please don't be in the house, in your bed, on the couch. Because that is just, you don't want to live a sedentary life. Sedentary living, they say, is like the new smoking. It's not going to help you with your well-being. So even if you're home a lot, okay, start being active at home first and then make your way out the door. Maybe if you even take up, let's say, gardening, okay? You start gardening and you see your neighbor outside. Just say hello to your neighbor. Now, so for some of you, that's hard. That's hard, because what if my neighbor wants to talk to me? What if my neighbor says, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Have you been? I have to answer that. I don't want to say that I have anxiety. What are they going to think of me? I'm anxious right now. What if they see my anxiety? What if they know that I can't breathe well? What if they see my heart coming out of my chest? What if they feel that anxious energy that I have? What if they know that? How embarrassing would that be? Does that make sense, ladies? I bet that does. And somehow I lost you all. I don't know how that happened. I'm getting back in the group. Okay. I'm back in the group. So we can have better connections by slowly getting out the door, introducing ourselves to the world slowly, because the last thing you want to do is overwhelm. You don't want to overwhelm. So don't jump into anything with 2 feet. Just start small in your house. I'm going to call people I haven't called before and reconnect. I'm going to text them. I'm going to have video chats with them. And let them know I'm still here, I'm still alive, and I'm working on this, and and I would love to get together with them. I'm working on it. Maybe you're not going to be able to, let's say, meet them at a restaurant because that's too much to be in a crowded place, but maybe the first step could be, hey, do you want to come over and I'll make you dinner? Or, I'll make you brunch or something and we can eat and chat or have some coffee and chat. Start small, okay? Like I said, the self-care. Ladies, do your best to get enough sleep because you need to take care of your well-being, all right? You can't allow being isolated as an excuse to just, I don't have a life, so I'm just gonna get up in the morning. I'm not gonna shower. Who cares about? I'm just gonna watch Netflix all day. I'm gonna scroll on my phone all day, and I'm just not. You're not exercising your brain. You need to have connection. That's not connection. okay? The brain needs connection. Exercise stimulates your nerve growth, and you need to do activities that engage the brain, like puzzles. And even if you do something like start maybe doing, I don't know, like sewing, crochet, do an instrument, seriously, like stuff like that, you get the brain to be active. It's very important to stay active. All right. So before I go, I'm just gonna update the group. Before I go, well, let me just make it a point, ladies, to say, and I think I said it before. Yippee, you crochet. Yep. Okay. Well, that's great. That's great. For sure. But are you isolating, and what can you do to maybe incorporate that? Maybe join a club with other women who also crochet. So that's what I'm saying. Find your tribe, Missy. Get out there, be amongst people. But the one thing I want to say, and I think I did say it, but it's worth repeating, okay? Isolation, okay, affects you not just mentally, because we're talking about anxiety here, emotionally, but physically as well. I mean, there are studies that say people who isolate over time, because of the fact that you're not practicing self-care, you're not going out being with people, depression goes up, more anxiety, less sleep, more not eating well. Okay, I'm glad you get out. I'm going to join a crochet. It starts next month. Yay! That's great, Missy. So happy to hear that for you. Awesome. But isolating yourself, okay, can lead to having heart issues and diabetes and Alzheimer's, and we know what that could do, okay? Get out. I know the anxiety could feel really debilitating, but the reason why you're segregating yourself, like you're isolating yourself from others, is because it's an avoidance behavior. It's avoiding. And we know avoidance behaviors do not do anything to help you overcome anxiety. So the more you stay in your home and isolate yourself and stay lonely and feel lonely, the more you're going to get yourself in that vicious cycle. You're not going to overcome anxiety that way. You want to overcome anxiety, have that awareness of what it is you're doing and why. Get out of the cycle of isolation by making better connections and practicing self-care, getting out that door, praying and making a connection with God, forming a better relationship with Him as well as your family and friends. Facing that, I know it's hard, but going out and facing being out there. I understand people are going to come to you and ask you questions you don't want to answer. You want to avoid those questions that and I don't want to tell them, yeah, I'm still anxious after a year. I don't want to admit that. Ladies, do something about it. You can. Anxiety is not a death sentence. It's not a lifetime sentence. It's not like, I know it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, depending on where you are in your journey. But this is not a life sentence, okay? Your life is not over. I am an example of that. because I was really bad, and I am living life as full as I possibly can. I'm taking it day by day, and I'm making something of myself. And something 10 years ago, if you told me where I'd be right now, I would probably laugh at you, not believing that I would be here. So your life can change in any moment, and it just begins with one tiny baby step, okay? Start with awareness and work your way. What is that one thing that you can do today, right now, in your present time, that can change your circumstances? And if you're not aware, you don't understand, and you need help with implementing all of this, please contact me and let's talk about how I can assist you, how I can guide you and support you in this time to get you to where you want to be in life. Does anybody have any questions about anything that I said? I don't even know if the people who were with me in the beginning are still with me, or I know it's changed. So, but from what you heard, are there any questions about anything that I said? And if you did come on late, ladies, just watch it from the beginning. All right? Because I really did explain what it means to be lonely, and why you isolate, what that does to you, and what you can do to not so much isolate anymore and get back out and live life. So, any questions at all? You give me hope. Anxiety is a nightmare. Oh, it is a nightmare. It really is. It's not a fun place to be, but we do know you have to change your relationship with anxiety. The only reason why Missy, and I'm not just directing this to Missy, whoever's on with me now, and anybody who watches this in the replay, okay? We misinterpret anxiety. It can be a nightmare, but it's a nightmare because of the definition you give it. Does that make sense? As long as you see anxiety as a nightmare, okay, and you see it in a negative light, it's always going to have a negative effect on you. Make sense, ladies? I mean, I didn't particularly care feeling anxiety, but the thing is, as I changed my relationship with it, if and when it does come back, it never comes back the way it used to, strong, and like Missy said, like I'm in a nightmare. It's just these feelings I get, it's just this uneasiness inside of me. And I go, oh, okay, that's my body trying to tell me something. And, and recently I not recently like yesterday, but, you all know I've lost my parents. I know I keep bringing that back up, but that's what's been my life lately. So with the loss of both my parents, yes, I've had uneasy feelings in my body, but do I live like this every day? Nope. Do I go, oh my God, it's back? Nope. Do I say, oh, I'm gonna be part of that nightmare again? Nope. Why? Because I changed my relationship with anxiety. I know exactly why it's there and why it's coming back. And I just take care of myself. I know exactly, thank you, anxiety, for telling me I'm under a lot of stress right now. Thank you, for anxiety, for letting me know that I just need to take care of myself right now and not let all this stress build up. Because losing 2 parents is pretty freaking stressful. So you give me hope. I'm fine getting out, gives my mind more to think about, even when I'm home. So what you're saying is, Missy, even when you're outside the house, you tend to overthink? Sounds like that. The panic moments are so hard. That's when I lose it. Yeah, Corey, panic, it's hard. Yeah, I get it. Panic, I mean, I lived panic for years. Oh boy. Um, but panic is fear. It's the fear of fear, which sounds crazy. I know. Because, somebody said to me, I think it was my husband, I don't know, a couple of my relatives probably said this to me. Fear of fear. Like, how do you fear fear? But that's what panic is. Because you feel the fear, and then you start fearing. As you feel the fear, you start fearing the fear that you feel. Does that make sense? So, but Corey, I did live trainings on panic. So if you want to know more about that, they're either in the guide section or you can find them on YouTube. So refer to my YouTube channel. And if you don't find them, let me know, and I'll see about how I can get them to you. Otherwise, ladies, are there any questions? I mean, you're making comments. Getting out and doing things gives my mind more good things to think about. Okay. I think about my time. Okay. Okay, Missy, I understand now. Thank you for clearing that up. You're welcome, Corey. And yeah, definitely take advantage of the live trainings that I've made for sure. But nobody has any questions? I mean, you're all good on loneliness and isolation, what it means to isolate and how to go about, getting out and fixing that. Everybody good? All right. So if nobody has any questions, I'm just gonna go. And thank you for joining me today, ladies. And I know this was a big subject because a lot of us feel very alone. And that alone, when we feel alone, we tend to isolate. But we know isolation is not very good for you. So how can you fix that? And I'm glad I had this opportunity to talk to you today about it. And, if you're watching the replay, any kind of clarification, questions you have, put it in the comments and I'll get back to you. Bye, ladies. And I'll see you next week. All right? Take care. You're welcome, Missy. You're welcome, Corey. Take care. Bye.